Let's turn in our Bibles to Matthew chapter 7. We're going to continue our study and our sermon series on a walk with Jesus. A chronological walk with Jesus through the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, has been the single most exhaustive study I've ever done on the life of Jesus. And I've loved every minute of it because I don't want to miss a moment. Not a single truth or a miracle or a promise that was given by God through the life of Jesus. There's nothing more important in this life than to know the man, Jesus, the Son of God. But it's more than knowing who he is and what he did and where he is today. Yes, we know and we believe that he's the Son of God and that he died for all humanity and that he's seated at the right hand of the Father today. You know, that's kind of one of his roles today, is to be an advocate for us. So I like to think of it like this. When I go to God in prayer, and I'm thinking to myself, now, you know what? This ain't the first time I've done this. I don't like that I do the things that I do sometimes, and I have a hard time with that. And if I were God, I'd say, no, I'm not going to forgive you. But here's what I like. Whenever I go to God in prayer, I think about Jesus sitting there, okay, at the right hand of the Father. And here he is. He shed his blood. He died for me and for you. And he died for a specific reason, for our sins. He covered our sins when he died. We talk about singing about the power of the blood. That's what we're talking about. That power to overcome anything in our life, to forgive us for every sin we've ever committed. And so when I pray and I think about Jesus sitting there, and I think, you know what, now I wouldn't forgive this. But I pray and I ask God to forgive me. Jesus looks over at God and says, I paid for that. What's he going to say? Well, I don't know if you really did or not. That's not what he's saying. He's looking and he says, you more than paid for that. You paid for the sins of the whole world, whether we ask for that forgiveness or not. The sins were covered. It's what we call atonement. Okay, you hear the word atonement? All the sins of the world were atoned for. And that's why the wrath of God will be saved until the end, okay, for those that still live in sin. But I like to know that Jesus is sitting there saying, that sin is paid for. And he says that he's forgiven. But our chronological walk continues this morning. Yes, he's the Son of God. Yes, he's seated at the right hand of the Father.
I was like, I'm not sure where that's coming from.
We'll get that sorted out here. All right, so, you know, many people, us included, many people know at least something about Jesus. And many believe something of what they hear about him. So they believe it. But yet their lives are lived and built with little more than a knowledge of who he is. Just the basics, the bare minimum. You know, we talk to someone and we say, have you been born again? And they say, well, I know Jesus. Okay, and I also believe Jesus. Okay, what else you got? You know, we want to know a little more about your life. We want to know about your relationship with him. There's this understanding that is really just okay, I believe that he existed. It's hard to understand how he's the Son of God, but I'll just go with you on that. Okay, we'll believe that. And so, I'm good. The bare minimum. And this is a representation of the foundation they have built their life upon. A shallow understanding. Now, I grew up around home building. I mean, from the time, that's all I've known. Okay, construction was something that I was around as far back as I can remember. I remember being on job sites as a kid. Just a kid. And my job was to just pick up scraps. Okay, that's what I did. I remember hiding in the pickup truck, in the floorboard, because the supervisor would come around and I was too young to be on the job site. And so they'd make me hide in the truck until he was gone. And I got to tell you, the South Carolina summers is not so cool in that truck. But because I was around it so much, I thought I understood. It's construction very well. So I built my first home when I was 22 years old. And it was then that I realized I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. I didn't lack the confidence to build, but I did lack the full understanding. So I went to school and took the necessary classes to get my builder's license, and then I built my next home. And I built many homes in my life, and with every one of them, I learned something new. And with all I've learned, I still have much to learn. But if I've learned anything, it's that you must have a solid foundation if any home is going to last. No matter how well a home is built, no matter how beautiful, how modern, how up to date it is, without a solid foundation, it will crack and it will settle and eventually collapse. It can have the most expensive features. You know, you can have the granite countertops, the marble floors, the fancy crown moldings, hardwood beams, the best of the best everywhere. But if what's underneath, supporting it all, is not solid, it's destined to fail. Jesus is nearing the end of his great sermon on the mountainside of Galilee. The crowds of people have listened to him, they've given them full attention. They've listened in awe as what he said. Wow, I mean, for the source of all wisdom has just shared the truth of life. And their hearts were full. And Jesus is about to wrap it all up in the next few verses. And as with any good sermon, and this was the best one ever, he wants to drive home the meaning, the point, the essence of his message. There's always an urgency. And this is what he says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. Anyone who listens to my teaching is wise. No, that's not what he says. You're seated up here. Anyone who understands my teachings is wise. That's not what he says. Anyone who memorizes my teachings is wise. That's not what he says. Anyone who declares my teachings, shares my teachings, writes about my teachings is wise. No, no, no. There is no wisdom in any of that. Jesus says, anyone who listens to my teachings and follows it is wise. Like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Now notice what he's saying. It's so important. If you miss this, you miss everything. And I don't just mean you miss what I'm preaching or you miss what Jesus is saying right here. No. You miss everything. Everything in the Christian walk. Everything in this word. If you miss this, you miss everything. He says anyone who listens to my teachings and follows it is wise. We have many standards of wisdom today, but there's only one that matters, and that is the standard of Jesus. I think we can all agree that the source of wisdom would be the standard of wisdom. And true wisdom is only as Jesus describes it. And he's just taught the people in a sermon that has taken us several months to cover. And I would say we hardly scratched the surface of its truth and all the wisdom that's in it. And Jesus says, if you listen to his teachings, that's great. You showed up on Sunday and you listened to his teaching. That's something. You read your Bible and therefore you listened to his teaching. Maybe even 7 days a week. You didn't miss a single day. Maybe it was several times a day. You're so dedicated. You're listening to his teaching. There are many sources today to get some kind of teaching from Jesus. All you need to do is listen. So you listened. And all of that, according to Jesus, makes you what? A listener. That's what it makes you. But he wants more from you than your attention. Your attention, your accumulation of facts, your knowledge of his sayings is nothing unless you do something. 1 Corinthians 8 says that knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. What's he saying there? He's saying, look, you can gather knowledge, but if you don't take that knowledge, especially as Jesus describes it here, and put it into practice, then you won't have the love that follows. You'll just have knowledge that puffs up. What is puffed up? Pride. He says it'll actually harm you to just have the knowledge without putting it into practice. But when you put it into practice, you'll be loving, and with love comes edification, which is encouragement. So what is that something that you must do? He says plainly in verse 24, anyone. I like that too. That means all of us who listen to his teachings and follow his teachings will be wise. Now, unlike our society today, knowledge, when you think about this, the ability to retain information is not what Jesus calls wisdom, okay? That's what our society calls it. Wisdom is listening to the teachings of Jesus and following the teachings. I mean, how many times have we given good advice? Well, it was wonderful advice. And someone may say, that's good advice. But then they don't act on that advice. Then it really did nothing for them. It gave them information, but it didn't produce any results. So what must we do that he teaches? We must obey. And that's why he says that obedience is better than sacrifice. Because obedience is following the teaching. It's just simply doing what he says. And then Jesus gives us an example of what listening and following and wisdom looks like in the real world. What does it look like to you in your life? He says they're like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Now, why was the Sermon on the Mount so long? Why did Jesus cover so much? He took 2 chapters here. He began with how to be blessed in a cursed world. And he then exposed the religious lies, trying to correct some of the false teaching you've heard. Let's get you back in line. He taught how to forgive and how to forbear. He taught so much. Why didn't he simply forego the lengthy message and just say, believe in me? End of sermon. Why didn't he just say that? If that's all we need to build our entire life on, our foundation of Christ, to just say, believe in me, and then that's it, then why don't he even give us the rest of the Bible? Just believe in him. Because we're to believe in Jesus in order to be saved, yes. But he did not save us to be fools. He saved us to be wise. And he gave us the means of wisdom through his teachings. But there is no wisdom, none at all, until we follow what he teaches. Jesus is the foundation of our lives. In 1 Corinthians 3, the Bible says, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, Jesus Christ. And at this point here, Paul was addressing a problem in the churches here in Corinthians, here in the church of Corinth. The people began to follow men more than God. They were basing their faith on the men they followed rather than the God of those men. And at that time, it was Paul and Apollos. Good men. Very good men. But mere men. And Paul rebuked them for this and proclaimed the truth. He says, no one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, Jesus Christ. I enjoy being your pastor. I enjoy talking with you, preaching to you. I enjoy that. But don't mention my name. I'm no one. I'm a man. Okay? Just like Paul says, there's only one foundation. And that foundation is Jesus. And If you're a child of God, it's only because you put your faith and trust in Him. It's He alone that saves you. And your life is built on the foundation of Jesus Christ. You know what? I would be a horrible foundation. Okay? Because I'm a person. I mess up. I say things I shouldn't. I do things I shouldn't. I'm a human being. Build your life on your pastor, and you have no foundation whatsoever. You build it on the unmovable, solid foundation, the unchanging foundation of Jesus Christ. Jesus says that wisdom is more than knowing. It's doing what He taught. And like a builder who carefully planned the right place to build his home, a place that is unmovable, solid, stable, and sure to last. He says in verse 25, though the rains come in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the wind beats against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. This house is your life and mine. Plain and simple. You see, life throws everything it has at us. There's no question of that. No one would say, I don't know, my life's been a breeze. Everything's went perfect for me. No, I've had no issues whatsoever. No. Life throws everything it can at every single one of us. And Jesus teaches us everything necessary to stand strong no matter what comes our way. But the teaching, the understanding of that teaching, the knowledge of that teaching does absolutely nothing unless we do what He has taught. There is a responsibility on our end to do what He teaches. It's not, and I know we're going to cover this a lot, okay, but knowing it, many of us know it. But until we do it, it means nothing to us. It gives us nothing. If there's breath in our lungs today, we are building our lives. Moment by moment, choice by choice, day and night, we live our lives. And the point is to become stable. You know, I remember when I was a senior in high school. And we were asked to describe our greatest fear. And my fear was not succeeding in life. That was my greatest fear. It wasn't snakes and darkness and all kinds of things like we heard in the class, but it was not succeeding in life. And what was I really saying? I want stability. Because success is measured in a lot of different ways, okay? But to you as an individual, me as an individual, it's simply about being stable. Yeah. I want security, stability. Stability in my home. Stability in my marriage. I want to be a stable father. I want our finances to be stable. I want my health to be stable. I want my friendships to be stable and my ministry to be stable. I wanted stability. I still want stability. We all need it. But make no mistake, without obedience to the teachings of Christ, we are not building on the solid foundation of Him. If we simply know what to do, we don't do it. It's not what we know that makes us wise, it's what we do. And again, Jesus taught more in one sermon than we could imagine. I really believe that I could take Matthew chapter 5 and 7 and live my whole life in stability just in what He taught in 2 chapters. Now, thank God I have the whole rest of it. But I know I could live healthy and stable if I just did what He taught in 2 chapters. But Jesus is God and He knows His audience. And so He's taught all of this, given us all of this truth. And He knows us better than we know ourselves. And what are we tempted to do but hear, enjoy what we hear, believe what we hear, trust and marvel at the awesome divine words of Jesus, and then do nothing with it? If I'm not hitting home with you, I am hitting home with me. Okay? And that's like knowing why and how to build a beautiful, stable life on the rock of Jesus and instead building on nothing but sand. Jesus says in verse 26, but anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish. Anyone. Doesn't matter the standard of wisdom that's been given to you by our society. He says anyone who hears these teachings and does nothing with it is a fool. Like a person who builds a house on sand. When I was beginning to build, there was much I didn't know. But over time, I learned. I watched the good builders and I asked questions and studied their methods. Did that make me wise? No, it made me informed. It wasn't until I put that in practice was there any wisdom there. If I didn't do what they taught me, if I didn't act on what I learned, I'd no longer be an uninformed novice, but a fool for knowing the right way, but not acting on that knowledge. And this is exactly what it's like to live a single day without obedience to God. I don't know how it is with you guys, but things are pretty simple for me. Mike and I talk about simplicity a lot, okay? We kind of thrive on simplicity, all right? So I can be over at my house working. Things aren't going good. And I mean, it was going good yesterday, but I'm working and things aren't going so well. I'm getting frustrated, making wrong cuts, I'm measuring wrong, I'm doing things wrong. And then it's like, what in the world? I didn't pray at all this morning. I did my devotion, okay? I may have spent an hour in my devotions. And then I went on about my day because I spent an hour, I better get to work. I get over there and things aren't going good. And I'm like, Lord, when am I going to learn to just pray every single morning? I need your help, Lord. I can't do this on my own. I can't do anything without you. I need your help. So I stop and pray, and he always helps. Jesus says, anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish. Now think about what he's saying here. He says, you've heard the teaching. He's not talking about the pagan, the atheist, the indifferent to the things of God. He's talking about his audience. Those who attend church and read the Bible, pray. Saved people going about their lives without any effort at all to obey what they learn. We put another joist in the floor, another stud in the wall, another sheet on the roof. We may even look great on the outside and on the inside. We're tiling the floor, we're painting the walls. We look so put together. But this is life. And the house Jesus is talking about is your life, mine. Life's cruel. Satan doesn't care about your fancy house. He doesn't care how well you present yourself. He doesn't care how much you know about the Bible. He doesn't care if you can correct your brother. He kind of likes you doing that. It aggravates your brother. Okay? He doesn't care what you know. He's going to shake you to your core. He's going to see if you have a foundation to stand on or not. But you know, God will also shake your core. He'll test your faith. Because faith that is not tested cannot be proven. He'll test your faith. He'll test my whole heart. Do you trust me? Yeah, but this looks impossible. But do you trust me? Do you believe what I teach? Then act on it. And if our faith has not proven itself through obedience to what we've been taught, it is nothing but sand. He says, anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. And when the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, because that's life, it will collapse with a mighty crash. what is that collapse? What is the mighty crash? It's the collapse of the marriage, the crash of the family unit. It's the mental breakdown. It's the financial ruin. It's the house of your life foolishly built upon the sands of hearing and not obeying. It's knowing the teachings of Jesus, yet implementing the ways of the world instead. Why? Because that's how we do it. You don't do it the way God says. Everyone else is doing it this way. It's knowing what to do and yet never finding a convenient time to do it. Jesus has taught his heart out. I mean, he's given us everything in a couple of chapters. And he knows that none of what he's taught, sadly, all that he's given, all the great truth within it, will amount to nothing. Nothing but ruin and collapse of life unless there is obedience to what he's taught. It's doing it. Just do what he teaches. And your house, your life, will stand strong on the mighty rock of Jesus Christ himself. Doesn't matter who you are. This truth does apply to you. And it will work for you. He says in Matthew 7:24, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. And though the rain comes in torrents and life throws the floodwaters at you and they rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't. It cannot. It is impossible for it to collapse because it's built on the rock of Jesus. You can't tear him down. He can't crumble, okay? He is the solid bedrock himself. You see the certainty of Jesus. What more does he need to say? What more could he say? He's assured us that our lives will stand strong no matter what we face from any direction. And you think about these things. The rain, the floodwaters, the winds, things we have absolutely no control over. And they can come from any direction at any given time. And he says, but if you just do what I teach, if you just do it, then you'll stand strong. The foundation of the wise, just in three little sentences. Listen to his teaching. Second, follow what he teaches. Third, stand firm on his foundation and live strong in him. In doing this, we'll live strong and healthy lives. It's a certainty because his truth is certain. But then anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish. You see that? There's no indifference here. There's no, if you hear and do, then you're strong. But if you hear and don't do, well, it's going to be all right. No, it's not going to be all right. You see, we can't just learn. We can't just hear. We can't just be informed. And everything's still just going to be okay. I wish it were that way, right? But it's not. I wish I could just live on what I know, but I have to act on it. He says, because if you hear it and you don't, then it is a foolish thing. You're building your life on unstable sand. And when the rains come, he didn't say if, he says when. The rains come and the floods of life come and the winds beat against your home, your life, because it will. It will collapse. There's a certainty also there with a mighty crash. And it's therefore the foundation of the foolish. Number one, you listen to his teaching. Number two, you do not obey what he teaches. Thirdly, you watch your life collapse in ruin. And when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. They were amazed. For he taught with real authority, quite unlike their teachers of religious law. Whole other message there. Jesus amazed everyone with his teachings and his sermons. Corrupt religious leaders were amazed. They would go looking to snare him. They would go looking to tear him down. They would go and hear him teach, and they'd be like, wow, this guy has some amazing wisdom. The scribes, the Pharisees, the lawyers, but also the tax collectors, the pagans, the shepherds, the educated, the uneducated, everyone who heard him was amazed at what he would teach. Still amazed people all over the world today. At the end of the day, our lives are defined in success or failure, not by what we hear or how amazed we are at what we hear, even from Jesus, the greatest teacher to ever live, but by what we do with his teaching. We listen and do to our success, or we listen and do not to our ruin. The time for listening and not doing is over, right? We don't have to live like that. It's no life at all. We're living in collapse, okay? Before a home collapses under a weak foundation, what do you see? You see cracks in the walls, okay? You see settling. There are problems, and there's problems. And yet, you're on this foundation that's so weak, you can't do anything about it. Jesus is saying that you can stop living like that. Stop just listening. Someone comes along, a builder or an engineer, structural engineer, comes along and says, hey man, you see that large crack here, starting up by the top of the door header, and it comes down here and it goes all the way down? Guess what? If you don't do something about that foundation, the house is going to crumble. And you go, wow, that's good to know. Tell me how that happens. Tell me what I should do. Well, you need to go in, you need to dig out the foundation, you need to have that shored up, pour in more concrete, put in a certain strength, do everything you need to do to shore up this home, and you go, that's a good idea. You do nothing. And then one day, the wind's a little stronger than normal around here. Pretty strong already. What happens? The house collapses. Floodwaters rise. It's so weak. You knew what to do. You found out what to do. You were amazed, like, wow, yeah, that's what I need to do. But then if you don't do it, what does it make you? Does it make you wise for knowing what to do? No. It makes us a fool for not doing what we knew was the right thing to do. The time for listening and doing nothing is over. Today's the day to begin building on the solid rock of Jesus and his wisdom. It's not just wisdom for him. It's not just to admire him for what he knows. He didn't teach us that just so you can say, wow, look at Jesus and his vast wisdom. No, he did this for you, for me, for our lives, so that we could have a stable life. Lack of dedication or lack of taking time to learn how to follow what Jesus taught is setting you up for certain failure. That can stop today. Today's the day when you do what you already know to do. Don't be a fool. No more of that. Be wise and make the time to obey. See what a huge difference it makes in your life. A life built on a solid foundation, the rock of Jesus Christ. When you're on that, when you're living in that home that has the cracks and it's getting worse, well, maybe you're not doing anything about it, but you're not comfortable with it. Okay? It's It's like, man, I don't know. What if the next storm's the one that takes me out here and I'm asleep in the home, right? There's a instability there. There's signs of what's going on, and you're thinking, I need to do something. Well, guys, we can talk about that house, but we know what we're really talking about. We're talking about our lives. Okay, we're talking about our relationships, our homes, our marriages, our finances, our health. This is what we're talking about. And we see the signs and we're like, Lord, I know that you talk about the things I should do so I can live in a stable mindset, okay? I can rest in you no matter what's coming my way, but just not gonna rest in that today. Just not gonna pray. I'm just gonna have a bad day at work all day. I'm not gonna stop and take the time and say, Lord, help me. I need your stability. And that's what it's like to know what to do and just not do it. But we don't have to live that way. Take the time. Read his word. Okay, yeah, there's that information. And we need it. He says those who listen to my teaching, so we have to do that. But then take what we are reading and implement it. Mm-hmm. Do it. And man, what a better mindset. Your heart's settled. Okay, yeah, it's not going to get fixed overnight, but I'm doing the right things necessary to make it work. That's true wisdom. And that is what Jesus teaches. It's what he taught throughout his sermon, and it's what he lived.